Hello YouTube, this is Harger from the Blade Fist Realm. Today we're going to discuss how to maximize your DPS as an Arcane Mage in a raid. We're going to discuss talents, spell rotation, and glyphs. Let's begin. First of all, if you're wondering about my gear, my WoW Heroes gear score is 2479, and the gear score add-on I'm at 4596, which is, pretty decent, but not great. So here's a look at some of my gear right now. Let's compare Arcane to other specs like Fire and Frostfire. For one, Arcane, you don't have to worry about the hit rating as much. I think the cap for it is 289. So when you're socketing your gear, you're not going to have to worry about putting as much as hit rating in there, which is important because you don't want to miss spells, which will lower your DPS. I've heard people on forums and other places say that Arcane spec is a major mana drainer, but that is untrue if you have a good rotation and know how to play. Mages have enough mana regen spells, so mana shouldn't be a problem during any fight. Where your DPS will be coming from in Arcane spec is basically your crits. If you took away an Arcane Mage's crits, then he would have very low DPS. So having a lot of crit is important for an Arcane Mage because Arcane Mages have major burst damage. Next, let's talk about what glyphs you're going to want as an Arcane Mage. First of all, you're going to want Glyph of Molten Armor, which increases your critical strike rating by an extra 20% of your spirit when Molten Armor is active. Now your Molten Armor will increase your critical strike rating by 55% of your spirit, so basically take half of your spirit and make it crit rating. That's a big number. As you can see, my crit rating unbuffed is 24.75%. Now when I cast Molten Armor, my crit rating goes up to 33.53%, almost 10%. That's a lot of crit rating, which will increase your DPS by a ton. This next glyph is optional, but I chose to have it since I couldn't find any others that worked. It is Glyph of Arcane Barrage, which reduces the mana cost of Arcane Barrage by 20%. The third glyph is a no-brainer. It is Glyph of Arcane Blast, which increases the damage of your Arcane Blast by 3%. Arcane Blast is a spell you're going to be casting more than 50% of the time as an Arcane Mage, so this is an important glyph to have. Next, let's talk about your spell rotation as an Arcane Mage. Having a good and consistent spell rotation as an Arcane Mage is very important for your DPS. Almost all Arcane Mages have the same spell rotation, which usually is Arcane Blast times 3 or times 4, depending on what you feel comfortable with on mana consumption. Then assuming that Missile Barrage has procced, you do Arcane Missiles, then when that is done channeling, you throw an Arcane Barrage, then repeat the process. Next, I'm going to show you where to put your talent points to maximize your DPS. First, you're going to want to put 3 points into Arcane Focus. That will help you increase your chance to hit with Arcane spells by 3%. That is key. You're going to put 2 more points into Arcane Subtlety. That will help you reduce your threat so you'll end up pulling the boss during a battle because of your uber DPS. Next, you're going to put 5 points into Arcane Concentration. This is probably the one thing that stands out the most on the Arcane tree. When this procs, your next spell uses no mana, and if you have points in Arcane Potency, it increases your spell crit rating by 30% for that one spell, and it has a 10% chance to proc. That's a big chance to proc and will save you a ton of mana during a long boss battle. Next, you're going to put 3 points into Spell Impact, which is going to increase the damage of your Arcane Blast by 6%. Since you use Arcane Blast most of the time, this is going to help your DPS by a lot. Next, you're going to put 3 points into Student of the Mind, which increases your spirit by 10%. This is important because Molten Armor is going to increase your critical strike rating based on your spirit. Next, you're going to put 1 point into Focus Magic, which is important during a raid because you can exchange Focus Magic with another mage, which will basically increase your critical strike rating during a boss by 6%. Basically, Focus Magic works like this. You give it to some type of spellcaster, and every time they have a critical strike, you gain 3% crit for 10 seconds. And usually, since that spellcaster is probably going to crit more than once within a 10-second period, you're going to have Focus Magic pretty much the whole fight, so you'll have an extra 3% crit the whole fight of whatever you're doing. and focus magic is going to increase whoever you put it on. They're going to have an increase of DPS also, so win-win. Next, you're going to put 3 points into Arcane Meditation. This allows 50% of your mana regeneration to continue while casting. Pretty much you're casting the whole time in any fight, so this will help you save on mana. Next, you're going to put 3 points into Torment of the Weak, which increases the damage of all your arcane spells against slowed or snared targets by 12%. This won't help much on boss fights since they are pretty much immune to all those effects, but against trash this will help your DPS. Now you need to put 1 point into Presence of Mind, which will make any spell an instant cast and open up other sections of the arcane tree to put talent points in. Then you will put 5 points into Arcane Mind, which will increase your intellect by 15%. Next, you're going to put 3 points into Arcane Instability. It's going to increase your crit and your damage by 3% of all spells. Then 2 points into Arcane Potency to increase your crit every time clear casting procs by 30%. Next, you're going to put 1 point into Arcane Power and 3 into Arcane Empowerment. Next, you're going to put 2 points into Arcane Flows. This reduces the cooldown of your Presence of Mind and Arcane Power by 30%. And it reduces the cooldown of your evocation spell by 2 minutes. By doing this, evocation will be available every 2 minutes to use, so you will never run out of mana. Next, you're going to put 5 points into Missile Barrage. This is where a ton of your burst damage will come from. It pretty much procs every time you cast Arcane Blast. Then 3 into Netherwind Presence, 2 into Spell Power, and 1 into Arcane Barrage. Then we go over to the Fire Tree. Next, you're going to put 3 points into Incineration, which will increase the critical strike chance of your Arcane Blast by 6%. Then go over to the Frost Tree and put in 3 into Ice Flows, so you could reduce the cooldown of your Ice Block spell. Put the other 2 wherever you want them. You need to put 3 points into Precision to increase your chance to hit with all spells by 3%. Put those last 2 talents wherever you want in the Frost Tree so you can open the Icy Veins section. There, you are done with your talent tree for Arcane. Put that last talent point wherever you want. Now you're going to be making a macro. Instead of clicking on your cooldowns one at a time, this macro will make it so you click on one button and it'll pop all your cooldowns. Copy the macro the way you see it and try it yourself. It should look something like this. Notice when I click the button, all my mirror images come out with my Arcane Power and Icy Veins activated already. You can easily add trinkets in there by typing in /use and the name of the trinket. It is better to pop all your cooldowns at once because you get major DPS and all your cooldowns will be ready at the same time. Now that we have our talents, glyphs, and a spell rotation in place, let's go try our DPS out on a target dummy. I have Molten Armor and Arcane Intellect on. Are you ready, Harger? He looks ready. Let's do this. Start off by popping all my cooldowns. I do 3 Arcane Blasts, then Arcane Missiles, then Arcane Barrage. Same thing. You have to be consistent when using Arcane. Even after my cooldowns wore off, I continued to cast spells for about 45 seconds, and I stayed above at least a 3.5k DPS. Not great, but it's pretty good for a mage in my gear. That's the power of an Arcane Mage. Rate, comment, subscribe. I'll be coming out with more videos. My next video will be how to do the arena as an Arcane Mage in the 2v2 bracket. So subscribe if you got tips out of this video and it helped you. Yeah, so get your ass back on WoW.